Hello, and welcome to Rejuvenated Women Impeccable Health for High Performing Women, episode 41. I'm Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley, and on today's episode, I actually wanted to take the time to share with you a little bit of our COVID experience because, as many around the country, in the last couple of weeks and months have done, we at our house have succumbed to COVID-19. And, in talking about this, I wanted to just tell our story because, some people are talking about it. Not everybody's talking about it. There's still a lot of fear and anxiety around it. And even for me, it's still hard to know what to think. And I'll kind of share the reactions around my family. And 'cause my 7-year-old has it, my husband has it. He's the one who started it. But I also wanted to share, just talk about some of the good that has come about with this whole COVID experience in terms of how we take care of ourselves and what we do when we're not feeling well. And so I'll get to that in a minute. First, we'll get into, how this came to be. It's a little ironic because my husband is probably the most careful of anyone in our family in terms of masking and using hand sanitizer and, being really cautious about where he goes and only going to the stores that he knows they spray down their shopping carts and all of that stuff. And oddly enough, he's the one who got COVID first and gave it to the rest of us. So he started feeling really crummy on Sunday after Thanksgiving and got a fever and was down for a couple days. And he went and got tested probably about he started feeling yucky on like Friday, Saturday. So it was like 3 days after he had started being symptomatic, he got tested and we didn't get results because there's this whole backup thing. And then he lost his sense of taste and smell. And so they got him in for a rapid test. His work did because he's in the healthcare world. And lo and behold, it was positive. So the rest of us went and got tested. And, what's been interesting about this is each one of our experience has been different. My two teenage stepsons don't have it, aren't symptomatic at all, tested negative. They mostly had in their teenage bat cave downstairs. So we'll say that's why. My youngest, our youngest and I actually didn't test positive either. However, I've been symptomatic. So I got retested and I'm still waiting on those results. And then my 7-year-old tested positive. And so I share this because there's a couple of things. I have a friend who also has it. She just lost her sense of taste and smell, but her test came back negative too. I don't want to, start anything around testing accuracy or any of that. I kind of want to lay this out as, nothing is perfect about this process or experience. So for example, my husband lost sense of taste and smell. He had a fever for a couple of days. My 7-year-old had a fever for about 12 hours and he slept till noon on the day that he didn't feel well. And then he was fine and has been driving us completely crazy since then because we've been on lockdown. I have been incredibly lethargic and tired. It's, my energy levels are not great and I get worn out easily. And it's not the kind of tired like, oh, I need to go take a nap. It's like physically, I don't think I can hold myself up any longer after I cook a meal or something. And that's starting to improve. But, we've all had different levels of getting this. And my friend who's in our circle who ended up with it as well, she has been even more sick. She had a fever for several days and she just finally lost her taste of sense and smell as soon as she started feeling better, which is very sad for her. She couldn't taste her steak. And so, I know there's stories out there. There's the people who are totally healthy and end up, passing away from this. There are the people who don't have any symptoms at all. I've heard those stories. There are the people who are somewhere in between, like we've been. I've been a little short of breath at times as well as being just tired and lethargic. And what I wanted to share about, what I think is been beneficial in this COVID-19 experience, because we don't have treatment, we don't have vaccines, so those are starting to come out. I'll spare you my thoughts on those things for the moment. But, what has really become necessary with this 10-day quarantine thing is it actually forces us to stop and slow down long enough to allow our body to do its job and heal. And this is something that I've seen as missing so often in our society in terms of how we deal with illness, is especially in the United States. It's, I don't feel well. Okay, what pill is going to make me feel better? Is it the nighttime like ZQuil or NyQuil or whatever? There's so many different things. Is it the decongestant? Is it the Tylenol or the ibuprofen or any of these things? And what we do is we mask the symptoms so we can keep going with our busy lives, which are part of what led to us being sick in the first place. And we don't actually take the time to rest and heal. And nothing exemplifies this more, as I don't know if I've shared this story on here before, but I'm just going to go ahead and share it now. When I was 20, my junior year in college, I ended up having the opportunity to just study abroad. So I lived in Vienna, Austria for 4 months. And I was there studying violin and German and trying to travel around. Though when you study violin in Vienna, Austria, you kind of don't get to go anywhere. All you do is practice. And so I ended up getting really sick. And at that point in my life, I'd found chiropractic. I'd, gotten really healthy. I'd gotten off gluten and dairy and sugar. And being in Vienna was actually hard on me because I didn't have the access that I had to some of that stuff in the United States. And even though it's different, I was still reactive to some stuff. So I ended up getting this really bad sinus infection. And we had this huge concert coming up. And I was like, I'm not going to make it. Like, I just need something to get through this concert. So I ended up going to a doctor. And this is the last time. I was 20, so this is 16 years ago. The last time I remember actually going to a doctor and just wanting the meds, just wanting to, get through and do the things I had to do. And I get into this doctor. Healthcare is very different over in Europe, and especially in Austria where I was. So, I had to just go sign in and wait until he was ready. So it was like 3 hours later, I get in and meet with him, and he looks at me and he goes, well, you have a sinus infection. Stay home for a week, do steam every 2 hours, and just rest. And I was like, I love that you just said that right now. That's amazing. Like, if this was any other time, I would be all for that. But please, I just need the meds to get through this concert so that I can, play and go on with my life. And so he gave me something to just help kind of dry things up and help me feel better. But I look at I've often shared the dichotomy of that, because our perspective on, I don't feel well, I need the pill or the thing that's going to make me feel better so that I can keep doing my life. And I'm not saying we need to stop doing our life, but I think the one benefit to this whole coronavirus thing, and I'm not trying to, make good out of, obviously there's been people who have died there. It's been scary. There are families who have really been impacted by this, and individuals and people. There are people whose lungs have not recovered. I'm not making light of any of that stuff. What I'd like for it to do is, serve as a wake-up call to help us change our perspective, perhaps, on how we deal with illness. Because when we're forced to stay home for 10 days because we have some unknown virus that no one, really knows how to treat still, even after it's been almost a year that this has been around, it forces us to do the things we should do when we're sick in the first place. Our bodies are very smart. Our immune system is capable of fighting things off. The reason we get a fever, I was actually really happy with my husband, because normally he's the guy who's reaching for the meds to just feel better. And he was terrified from all the news that's come out about, ibuprofen and how it exacerbates COVID symptoms and all of this stuff. He wouldn't take anything. And I was like, good, let the fever do its job. We get a fever because our body is it's one of our body's natural defenses to stop whatever's invading us and causing us to be sick. And so when we medicate that, especially in kids, we take away that body's defense mechanism. So unless it's, something that's an emergency, like, you're over 104, 105, getting into that range where you're going to have brain damage from the fever, obviously we need to do something about that. But when you just have a low grade fever, even into the 100, 101 range, it is your body's way of defending itself and doing the things that it needs to do to just heal. And so having this time and space to just actually do that, I think, is one of the incredibly, potentially, if we allow it to be, beneficial things that has come out of this whole thing. That's not to say don't be careful still, and don't take care of, make sure you do all the things that the CDC has recommended. Wear the mask and use the hand sanitizer, and try to socially distance as much as you can, and don't, participate in large group gatherings and all of that stuff. I think we can see time and again that is leading to the spread of this. And with that, everyone's experience is different. And, I'm someone who prides myself on being healthy and having good gut health and all that. I still got it. It's being healthy isn't about that we don't ever get any kind of disease or illness. It's about how our bodies are equipped to handle that. And it's about creating the opportunity for them to do so. And, having to stay home for 10 days from when your symptoms started to, when they go away, is honestly probably a huge, I know it's not a blessing financially or any of that stuff, but it's a big blessing for us to just learn how to allow our bodies to actually do their job and heal. So that's largely what I wanted to share with you today. My goal with this is just to spark just some comfort in knowing, like, maybe this doesn't have to be as scary for the entire world as it has been made out to be. It's the people who tend to get really sick or have trouble or end up in the hospital are those who have underlying health conditions generally. They're not people who are generally healthy and taking care of themselves. And so if you're one of those people with an underlying health condition, you have an opportunity to start taking care of yourself. That's going to be your best defense. And I'll just quickly share, so the things that I've been relying on while we've been home is taking our vitamin D and doubling up on it. I usually take 10,000 IUs a day during the winter here in Alaska, and I've taken anywhere from 10 to 20 a day. You have to take a lot of vitamin D in order to actually hit the point where you have poisoning from it. It is a fat-soluble vitamin, and that can happen, but it's quite a bit. Most people are still so deficient that it's not going to make a huge difference if you double up for that week or whatnot, or just get your levels up. So we've been doing that. Everybody's been taking the vitamin D. We've been resting. I've been making healthier meals that have a lot of garlic. Garlic is one of the best antibacterials, antivirals out there. It naturally has some of this stuff. The more raw it is, the better that it is for that. So, I've been making soups and mostly soups because that's just been what sounded good, but with lots of garlic and some good bone broth and stuff like that. Eating as clean as we can. My son's been really into baking, so that some of that stuff's been around, but I don't generally partake in it. And and we've just been resting. And when I feel tired, I sit down. And if I'm out of breath, I sit down. I've read about 5 books. I have a friend who's an aspiring romance novelist who keeps sending me recommendations on things to read, and it's been fantastic. And then the other things I've been doing is using my essential oils. So I use things like I'm partial to doTERRA, so the protective blend On Guard, and it's always in my diffuser, as well as the respiratory blend Breathe, which has really been helpful with any shortness of breath. I have both cough drops and diluted oil to rub on and have it in the diffuser, and that's really been helping us, just get rid of whatever the lung stuff that comes along with this is. So those are, my biggest recommendations. And then it's like, get enough sleep. And the other thing I've been taking and having everyone on is probiotic as well, because your immune function comes from your gut health. I've been talking about that on social media a lot this week. So, do the things that we talk about that are helpful. Don't stay up until 3:00 in the morning. Don't eat all the sugar and candy. Don't, have the meal that is going to make you feel terrible. Don't forget your supplements and all that stuff. Make sure that you're putting in the time and the habits and the things necessary to allow your body to be able to fight this thing off should you succumb like we did to it. And, if not, that's going to be the thing that's going to help you have the least symptoms, the least reaction, and really get through this and be okay. We don't have to be afraid of something new. I know there's a lot of unknown and it can be scary, and medicine now has to catch up to something new, and we've got these vaccines coming out that may or may not work. And I was actually told by the public health nurse I talked to that there's about 8 strains of COVID in Alaska right now. So some people are getting it a second time. So my thoughts with all that is it's going to become something that's like the flu. It's going to become something that we just get used to as part of our normal list of things that you can possibly get, and it's going to someday stop being such a big deal. But until we become more knowledgeable and have a better understanding of it, there's still that fear of unknown. So hopefully me sharing, our stories of my husband, myself, my 7-year-old, my husband and I are 11 years apart. My son is 7, obviously, how it affected each one of us and what that looked like is helpful, and just, can help you feel either more secure or have some ideas on how you can best support your body, and just be grateful that, taking the time to rest and heal is what we're supposed to do. And so hopefully we can apply this to anything down the road, because I think we would be spreading stuff around a lot less if we weren't forcing ourselves to, go in and go to work and do the things. And I understand a lot of us have to do those things. So it's about finding that way to balance the two. There's got to be balance in there somewhere, and time for you to really create an environment where your body can heal. All right. We will see you next week.